the mobile campus building at Keochoni last month. That was a really good meeting. We were able to hear and listen to all of the people in their area, what their concerns were. Ultimately, the thing that I took away from that and the testimony from both our tribal programs and with the people in general is our concern of taking care of our relatives that are METH, trying to provide a different direction for them and helping them. That really came across to me at the last meeting that we had, and I appreciated that because a lot of times we have a tendency to forget that these are our relatives and that we're all related. We need to make sure that not only are they safe, but those people around them are safe as well. So I'd like to thank all of you who came here today to be a part of this, to help us out in our brainstorming. Dakota has a lot of information he researched and he'd like to share with us. And with that, I would just say thank you for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you for the opening statement, Cindy. So we've come together today. This morning we're going to redirect our focus area to the issue at hand, the concerns in the community, which is the use of methamphetamine and its prevention. So we're going to start off by doing a PowerPoint presentation and share with the information with you. Most of this morning will be for that, as well as what some of our programs are doing around the prevention of meth. And then this afternoon, we're going to do the actual task force development to give you an overview of what's going to happen today. And so we'll get started on the PowerPoint presentation. So this is the overview of methamphetamine. This presentation is brought to you from the OST Executive Board and also the Chief of Staff Office. So what this PowerPoint presentation consists of: the signs and symptoms, children that are at risk, tips for home visitors, tips for employee safety, President Barron's proclamation when he declared it a state of emergency, and then we'll go into some of our presentations from our programs, as well as this afternoon using the guide for task force development, the strategic prevention framework, and planning and implementation and evaluation. What is methamphetamine? Methamphetamine is a stimulant drug that's usually used as a white, bitter tasting powder or pill. Crystal methamphetamine is a form of the drug that looks like glass fragments or shiny bluish white rocks. It is chemically similar to amphetamine, a drug used to treat attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. It's also known as a sleep disorder. How it's used: people use meth by different ways of inhaling, smoking, swallowing through a pill form. They also snort it, or they inject the powder substance that has been dissolved in water or alcohol. And methamphetamine effects of the brain increases the amount of natural chemical dopamine in the brain. Dopamine is involved in body movement, motivation, pleasure, and reward. Pleasures from natural behaviors such as eating. The drug's ability to release high levels of dopamine rapidly reward areas of the brain, which produces a rush or a flash that people experience. The short-term effects of this is taking even small amounts of methamphetamine. It can result in some of the same effects as those of other stimulants such as cocaine or amphetamines. These include increased wakefulness and physical activity, decreased appetite, faster breathing, rapid and or irregular heartbeat, and increased blood pressure and body temperature. The picture up here towards the left-hand corner is a normal, how a normal brain looks. Better?
Yep.
So up in the left-hand corner up here is how a normal brain looks, but this is how a brain looks on meth. So we're going to get into talking a little bit about that. The long-term effects of meth is people who inject methamphetamine are at increased risk for contracting infectious diseases such as HIV, hepatitis B, and C. These diseases are transmitted through contact with blood or bodily fluids. Methamphetamine use can also alter judgment and decision-making, leading to risky behaviors. Long-term methamphetamine use has many other negative consequences. They include extreme weight loss, severe dental problems, intense itching, leading to skin sores from scratching, which is also known as meth mites or grape bugs. They also have anxiety that they develop, confusion, may experience sleeping problems, violent behavior, paranoia, extreme and unreasonable distrust of others, hallucinations, sensations, and images that seem real even though they aren't. Those are some pictures of the effects of meth and what it can do to your teeth. So that's one way to identify somebody that is using meth. Methamphetamine's addiction. It's highly addictive. So when people stop taking it, they experience withdrawal symptoms, which include anxiety, fatigue, severe depression, psychosis, intense drug cravings. The signs and symptoms of meth use. Meth, there are certain signs associated with meth use that can be noticeable from the first time someone tries the drug. Not every user will display every one of these symptoms. Other illicit drugs may also cause similar signs. In early use, you may see they're excessively happy. They have a decreased appetite, increased physical activity. They have anxiety, shaking hands, nervousness, overuse of talking, rapid eye movement, increased body temperatures, dilated pupils, and sweating not related to physical activity. If you suspect the meth use, you may see paranoia, sleepiness and severe depression, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, extreme irritability and anxiety. They may have seizures, teeth grinding, bad teeth, and body odor, skin ulcerations and infections, the result of picking at the skin, or those imaginary bugs we mentioned, auditory and visual hallucinations, violent and erratic behaviors, nervousness, a loss of pleasure, dryness of the sheet for children at risk. Children at risk, these are some of the results from that. The exposure to explosive, flammable, toxic ingredients stored in kitchen cabinets, bathrooms and bedrooms, access to methamphetamine and paraphernalia, presence of loaded weapons in the home and booby traps due to the paranoia of meth users, physical and sexual abuse, exposure to high-risk populations, sexual abusers, violent drug users, neglect, including poor nutrition and poor living conditions, and the presence of pornography. If a pregnant woman uses meth, the baby may experience premature birth, growth retardation, withdrawal symptoms including abnormal sleep patterns, high-pitched crying, poor feeding, cerebral injuries, limpness, apparent depression, shaking and tremors. They may experience irritability, fits of rage, sensitivity to stimuli including human touch and regular light. They may have coordination problems, birth defects, 6 times more likely, including effects on the central nervous system, which affects the heart and kidneys, cerebral palsy and paralyzed, becoming paralyzed are common. The effects of meth last longer than crack and can lead to more damage. Levels of meth present in breast milk are higher than the level of blood. So even the ones that are breastfeeding, contaminating, exposing the child. Parents who use meth often exhibit extreme mood fluctuations, violent behavior, depression, poor impulse control, bizarre behaviors, lack of attention to hygiene, acute psychotic episodes, polydrug use as meth use continues, the parents unable to provide basic needs to the child due to changes in the brain chemistry. The parent loses the capacity to care about anything but meth. And so that's what the effects of meth use to our children is. And I think that last part is important to remember. Because of the brain chemistry, the parent loses capacity to care about anything but meth. Children whose parents experience or manufacture meth may experience respiratory problems, delayed speech and language skills, higher risk for kidney problems and leukemia, malnourishment, poor school performance and attendance problems, isolation, physical and sexual and emotional abuse, poor dental health, hyperactivity and attention disorders, lice, obesity, other developmental problems, violent behavior, drug uses, lack of boundaries, and easy attachment to strangers. Medical personnel. Agitation. They may notice some inconsolability. Protracted vomiting, hypothermia, roving eye movement, seizures, and headaches. If you suspect meth production, leave the area immediately and contact local law enforcement. Tips for homeowners and renters. Methamphetamine is a dangerous drug that possesses serious health and environmental dangers. The drug can be manufactured in homes, apartments, garages, outbuildings using toxic household and agricultural chemicals that can explode or ignite without warning. Innocent bystanders visiting or living near the site of a meth lab are extremely vulnerable and at risk for injury. Safety while visiting the property. Keep your hands as free as possible. Leave the home immediately if you smell chemicals. Do not touch any suspicious items. Be aware of your surroundings and leave if your instincts tell you to. Call law enforcement and report any suspicious activities or items. Property inspections. Chemical orders of meth manufacture, either like aromatic sweet odor, often accompanied by a sweet taste, sometimes described as a hospital odor or a nasal irritant. Solvent-like means sweet odor from common solvents used in paint thinners, paint removers, adhesives, and cleaning fluids. The type of odor found in an auto body shop or an eye nasal irritant. Ammonia-like is like intense, sharp, irritating odor similar to but much stronger than that of wet diapers, glass cleaners, cattle feedlots or fertilizers, eye and nasal irritant. You may notice some tenant behavior that can include respiratory irritation, chemical burns, hyperactivity, aggressive and violent behaviors, paranoia or hallucinations, restlessness and agitation, dilated pupils, and they're really talkative. Some of the more large quantities of meth ingredients include canning jars with multicolored layered liquids, aquarium tubing used in bottle or jugs, cold and allergy tablets, lithium battery casing, ammonia, table or rock salts, gas line additive, drain cleaners, camping fuel, matchbooks, starter fluids. Unusual security or ventilation measures. Those include baby room monitors being used outdoors, video surveillance systems positioned to observe exterior of home, elaborate fencing and heavy-duty locks when it's not evident what is being secured. You may notice fans positioned to ventilate the home, windows blackened out or covered, protective and aggressive dogs, night vision equipment, and then so be sure to include outbuildings in your inspection, including garages, storage sheds, and barns. And this is more of tips for home visitors. So it encompasses 3. So there's a before you go, upon your arrival, and kind of doing a safety during the time of your visit. So ensure that you have obtained as much information as possible about your client. If possible, canvass the area before the home's address. Assess potential safety concerns and take precautions. Communicate your schedule and likely route to your supervisor. Notify your office of your arrival. Carry only your ID, a cell phone, and keys. Do not wear clothes and shoes that can impede your movement. Pants are best. Wear a name badge if you have one, but don't wear one around your neck. A clip-on is best. So upon your arrival, park within the direct side of the home's entry. Park in a well-lit, unobstructed area. Don't park in the driveway of the home. As you exit the car, be attentive to people in the area and unsecured dogs. Be aware of any meth paraphernalia in the area surrounding the home. Keep your hands free as possible. Do not be distracted by talking on a cell phone. Carry a personal alarm if feasible. And then during the time of your visit, present yourself as calm, confident, observant, and in control. Position yourself between the client and the exit. Sit in a hard-backed chair. Have an excuse to leave in advance. Be aware of your surroundings and leave if your instincts tell you to. Pay particular attention to the client's protectiveness relating to certain rooms of the home, and leave the home immediately if you smell chemicals. Here's some employee safety tips. And these would include sanitation workers, postal service employees, utility workers, cable installers, meter readers, delivery drivers should all be aware of the risks, or if you're an employee doing a home visit, that type of thing. Again, notify and communicate your schedule and route to the supervisor. Notify them of your arrival. Carry your ID and cell phone and keys. Do not wear clothes and shoes that might impede your movement. Wear a name badge if you have one. Again, park within the direct side of the home's entry. Park in a well-lit, unobstructed area. Don't park in the driveway of the home. As you exit your vehicle, be attentive to people in the area and unsecured dogs. Be aware of any drug paraphernalia in the area surrounding the home. Keep your hands free as possible. Do not be distracted by talking on a cell phone. And carry a personal alarm if feasible. While at the home, present yourself as calm, confident, observant, and in control. Be aware of your surroundings and leave if your instincts tell you to. Leave the home immediately if you smell chemicals. Be aware of indicators of meth use, which is the hyperactivity and compulsiveness, aggressive violent behavior, paranoia and hallucinations. You notice restlessness and agitation, you dilated pupils, and being really talkative. This is where we get into the actual meth ordinance that we have. Basically, it's the ordinance number 1622. And I do apologize, I was going to make copies this morning, but we're going to go ahead and just basically read this, what the law states around what is ordinance number 1622. So, ordinance of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council declaring war on the manufacture, distribution, and the use of methamphetamine and other dangerous drugs on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Amending the Oglala Sioux Tribe Criminal Offense Code to allow for enhanced penalties for dangerous drug offenses and establishing uniform laws and procedures for the exclusion and banishment from the reservation of persons convicted of dangerous drug offenses. And so if you guys have your email given to us on the sign-in sheet, then we will go ahead and give you guys a copy of this. I know there were some questions that arose at the last meeting in Cayo. People were wondering what is the law of meth and that type of thing. So we'll get into that in just a little bit. But again, we do have a copy readily available. So we're going to go over just a few statistics that we have, and these are given to us, and we appreciate that their help in giving us this so we can share with you guys. The OST Department of Public Safety, and a report for October 1st, 2018 to September 30th, 2019, officers filed 728 charges against individuals for drug possession, ingestion, and or distribution. According to the Pine Ridge Justice Center of Tribal Penal Code 547, 542, and 546, which is the manufacture, distribution, and possession with intent to distribute, which is 542 and let's see, 547 and 546 and 7. 546 is prohibited acts, simple possession and ingestion, and 547 is prohibited acts, drug paraphernalia. So from December 2018 to December 2019, there was a total of 222 drug-related charges. In Kyle Correctional Facility alone, daily meth charges for fiscal year 2019 was 195. The Justice Center Adult Offenders Facility here, the daily meth charges for fiscal year 2019 was 144 charges, just on meth alone. And so according to the OST courts, in December 2019 through basically yesterday, there was 16 cases, convictions, charges. That was the data given to us by the courts yesterday. So I think those, you take a look at those numbers, and they're all very interesting. If you just kind of note them, we'll talk a little bit about those later. This is the OST proclamation, gives us justification. It's declaring the state of emergency for the meth use here, for us to combat it. So let's blow this up a little bit. It's kind of hard to read. It's a proclamation declaring a state of emergency of homicides and meth use on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. This is from the Office of the President. A proclamation by the President of the Oglala Sioux Tribe, Julian R. Barron. On this date, January 6, 2020 at 3:00 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, I am declaring a state of emergency for the Pine Ridge Reservation based on rising numbers of homicides and meth use that are on the rise, which directly affects the Lakota way of life and balance of society. Whereas the Pine Ridge Reservation covers more than 3 million acres in a remote and rural area and has more than 45,000 enrolled citizens. And whereas the Oglala Sioux Tribe is one of 16 sovereign nations in the Great Plains region and part of the Ocheti-Shakoi 7 Council Fires, known as the Great Sioux Nation, with treaty rights, the United States obligation to us, and our unique political relationship with the United States set forth in a series of treaties through 1868, including the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1851 and the 1868 Sioux Nation Treaty. And whereas the Great Sioux Nation, along with its allies, the Northern Cheyenne and Arapaho Nations, defeated the 7th Cavalry Regiment of the United States Army at the Battle of the Little Bighorn, also known as the Battle at Greasy Grass. And the victory, along with capturing the United States flag that day on June 25, 1876, has made a huge part of why the United States entered into peace treaties with the Great Sioux Nation and its allies. However, it is the belief of the Oglala Lakota that to this day we will continue to be punished by the United States for this act, and whereas the United States treaty obligations and trust responsibilities to the Oglala Sioux Tribe call for efforts to ensure peace, prosperity on the Pine Ridge Reservation. And whereas, despite the United States treaty obligations and trust responsibilities to our tribe, our Pine Ridge Reservation suffers from inordinately high rates of death, along with employment and extreme poverty within the Oglala Lakota County alone, which is entirely within our reservation and consistently one of the highest in negative statistics counties in the United States. And whereas our tribal citizens face many social challenges associated with generational and historical grief, compounded with real-time grief over the continual loss of loved ones due to all the negative statistics associated with the high rate of deaths, suicides, as well as homicides. And whereas many of our tribal citizens continue to face historical intergenerational trauma, issues, and horrific acts committed against indigenous nations, and are still reeling in the shock waves from the onslaught of Christianity, which seeks to eradicate the Lakota way of life and beliefs. And the Oglala Sioux tribe, whereas the tribal citizens are pushing forth for the restoration of traditional lifeways and laws by understanding the practicing of Lakota lifeways and laws in order to combat the extreme poverty, alcohol and drug abuse and addiction, and high crime rates arising from such drug abuse and addiction. And whereas with just one past few weeks we have experienced several homicides right here on the Pine Ridge Reservation that are directly related to meth use, with Lakota killing another Lakota. Whereas meth use, like alcoholism and other drug abuse, is a symptom of a larger socio-economic problem. However, with this adequate resources that the federal government has at its disposal, the Oglala Sioux tribe is limited in what efforts it can provide to its members in terms of outreach, prevention, awareness, and action on the Pine Ridge Reservation. Now therefore, I, Julian R. Bear Runner, President of the Oglala Sioux tribe, do declare a state of emergency of homicides and meth use on the Pine Ridge Reservation, and be it further declared, Julian Bear Runner, President of the Oglala Sioux tribe, remind the United States of America of its treaty obligations and trust responsibilities to the Oglala Sioux tribe, and requests immediate assistance from the Department of the Interior and the Bureau of Indian Affairs Drug Task Force, and or any other resources available in the form of immediate deployment of appropriate investigators and other related resources to the Pine Ridge Reservation to assist the tribe with meth prevention and intervention efforts. And be it further declared, Julian Bear Runner, President of the Oglala Sioux tribe, call on all components of the United States government that can assist us in the efforts to prevent meth use on our Pine Ridge Reservation. To do so by providing sustainable, consistent, and perpetual fundings in order for our Lakota people to help our Lakota people to heal the spirit of the people. And be it finally declared, Julian Bear Runner, President of the Oglala Sioux tribe, demand that the METH Task Force be fully supported to develop and implement strategies to combating the high rates of meth use and homicides on our Pine Ridge Reservation. Signed, Julian Bear Runner. So for those of you that didn't get the opportunity to read that thoroughly, we have it here. Okay, so from here, I think we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll resume here at 10:20 again. I know that this was a lot of information that was given this morning, but the idea of it was just most of you here know the effects of meth, and may have experienced it within your own communities, and you hear about it in different places, but we wanted to make sure that the information was out there and that we were providing that information the best way that we can. And so we kind of want to move it along with our agenda here, and we want to incorporate a very well-rounded plan to where we want to get an idea of what everybody's doing in their capacities within their organizations. And so without further ado, we'd like to introduce the Chief of Police, and he'll give us a presentation on what his department is doing all about meth. So we can welcome him, please.
Thank you, Dakota. I'd like to thank you for the information that you gave out this morning. I think it was very informative. I think it's something that we have to give out to all our communities in terms of what is meth, what is the effects that it's having on our community, what is it doing to our families. And so I think, you know, that presentation that you gave out, I think it's imperative that every one of our community members are able to see that type of information so that they can start recognizing the symptoms that many of our family members may exhibit and some of the issues resulting in meth use. But as far as the Department of Public Safety, I just want to further a little more data that Dakota gave there. I know the data that he gave was some from us specifically dealing with meth, some was from the jails and some was from the courts, but I'd like to just kind of give an overview of our police department and what we're doing here and how you can see some of the effects that and results that I think we're having here on Pine Ridge. In FY19, our department, we received 130,606 calls to our dispatch center. Of that 130,000 calls, 19,231 were 911 calls, and as a result, we've had 68,626 calls for service, and that's pretty much compatible to the Rapid City Police Department and the amount of traffic that they handle in one of our bigger metropolitan areas in the state of South Dakota. We've increased our arrests over the last 3 years. In FY 2017, we arrested 5,700 people. FY 18, we arrested 6,900 people. And FY 19, we arrested 10,156 people. And so you can see the increase over the 3 years of how we've basically moved our enforcement. And one of the reasons for that increase is basically doubling our amount of manpower. When I walked in the door 18 months ago, we had 26 officers on the street. At the current time, we have 53 officers working on the street. So you can see the amount of increase in arrests. Our department, we had 2,000 more arrests in the Rapid City Police Department. It shows the activity of what we're doing here on this reservation. Number one, to try to clamp down on a lot of the activities involving drug use, alcohol use, and other things that are going on in our communities. We know that meth, you know, it's a major issue with our program. As a result of it, in 2018, we received a grant from the U.S. Attorney's Office, which allowed us to hire 2 additional police officers, which allowed me to assign 2 people to task force with the Rapid City Police Department. Our officers meet once a week with that task force in exchange of information for drug activity to and from the city as far as drugs coming and going from the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. So we continue to do that on a weekly basis and sharing that information as far as the illegal transportation of drugs to the reservation. Our department is also part of the Safe Trails Task Force, which is a federal task force consisting of FBI, BIA, state, and local police departments. And BIA has 2 full-time drug agents assigned to Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, and we have assigned 2 of our new investigators as full-time drug agents. So we have a total of 4 agents now working full-time on drug issues on Pine Ridge. And that, the 2 agents that we just assigned, we just assumed the law enforcement function of criminal investigation from the Bureau of Indian Affairs. We brought on a total of 8 agents right now. Under a 638 contract, there'll be a total of 9 agents when we finish our hiring process. And so we take it very serious and putting resources and expertise to stopping the illegal sale of drugs on the reservation. One of the other areas that we work on, we have 4 K9 units across the reservation. Those are OST DPS K9 units. They're deployed as part of the drug interdiction program to assist us in stopping illegal drugs activity. K9 units, they work real close with our patrol division across the reservation. Our highway safety program, which consists of 4 troopers, they're also involved in drug interdiction too. We haven't had any reports of airplanes flying over, dropping bundles of dope on the Pine Ridge reservation. So, it's pretty much assured that 100% of our dope is brought in by vehicle. And so we're putting this effort in terms of vehicle stops and stuff to do, inspections, searches of vehicles where probable cause exists, to cut down on that transportation.
Yeah.
With the increase of effort in terms of enforcement, the Department of Public Safety, we filed 728 charges of 728 individuals for drug possession, ingestion, or distribution in FY 2019. Already in 2020, I just pulled the stats. As of today, we've already made arrests since October 1st of this year to yesterday of 260 people. So we're continuing to put pressure on in terms of arresting people, getting them held, and filing charges. It's going to be, our number one priority for the department is to stop the meth on the reservation. It's the number one drug issue for us. Of the 728 arrests for drugs, 347 were for marijuana, 310 for meth, 28 for cocaine, and 29 other drug-related charges, like paraphernalia, other things like that. So, this shows an effort by the department over the last 18 months of what we're doing in terms of stepping up our enforcement activities to cut down on the drug activities. Yesterday, we had a meeting with the Attorney General's office here, the Federal Task Force, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, here at the Department of Public Safety. And we're working on our strategy of how we're going to do additional enforcement of drug interdiction on the reservation. As of today, I can actually say that through the task force, we've done more buys in the last 30 days than we have in the last 4 years. And so we are working diligently to combat the situation. We're going to be moving forward with active investigations, and at some point in time in the near future, be looking at multiple or many arrests of drug distribution people across the reservation. So it's something that not only through the declaration here, but simply because of the attack that meth is having on our communities, we're taking it very serious. Some of the things that Dakota pointed out there in his presentation, what I can say as the chief of police, I can say that 100% of our meth coming into this reservation is brought in from the outside. We simply do not have any what could be meth on the reservation. And the simple reason for that is the lack of the precursors. that are used for doing meth, simply because Congress has passed the laws now. You can see over the last few years, you used to be able to go into the drugstores, pharmacies and stuff, and just reach in and, buy packs of Sudafed, one of the main ingredients of meth. Now that when you buy meth, you have to basically register. I mean, not meth, but Sudafed. You have to go to the pharmacist. You have to sign your name, show an ID, and stuff. So a lot of the measures that Congress has taken in cutting down some of the precursors used to make meth has had a significant impact on actually cooking stuff in our communities. But because of the drug is so cheap that what we're seeing is everything that I can say that we're getting is coming from Mexico. And through Denver, the I-25 corridor, Rapid City, and surrounding communities. So, again, working closely with outside law enforcement agencies, we're going to continue to do what we can to cut down on meth and other drugs coming into the reservation. One of the things in talking with Attorney General yesterday and the task force, there's been some real positive lights that come forward from the tribal council as far as passage of legislation. I believe at the last council meeting, not this one, but the one prior, working with Attorney Glenn and some of the action that we took during the Coordination Law and Order Committee. Provisions in the code have been changed that allow us now to hold an individual for up to 72 hours on any drug-related arrest once they make their initial appearance. This gives us more time to get in and debrief these folks and obtain any information as to they may have concerning their drug activity. So that's going to be a big help. The other thing that we've heard loud and clear from the council and the Law and Order Committee is talking about banishment. There's actually 2 cases before the tribal court right now that are moving forward in terms of banishing a couple people that are involved in this area. So what that will entail in banishment, and I want to make it clear to the public that this is not disenrollment. But banishment is simply if you are banished from the reservation through the judicial process, what will happen is we will load you up, we'll give you a ride to the reservation line, and you'll be dropped off. And if you come back on the reservation, you'll be put in jail for 1 year, and upon release of that 1 year, you'll be loaded up again and taken off the reservation. And that will continue until you no longer come back to the reservation. That process will go on. It's a lifetime banishment, but I think it's within a 5-year period. You have a right to come back and appeal to the tribe and say, I've cleaned up my act, I went through treatment, I've turned my life around. Therefore, I want that ability to live back on the reservation. So those are 2 cases that the Attorney General is moving forward with right now. And we'll carry out any orders that are issued by judges in terms of executing that action along. So, I just wanted that message to go out to the public and the individuals sitting here. We're working hard. We're not just sitting here and not addressing the issue. So with that, if there's any questions, one of the concerns that we have, and it was brought up a couple weeks ago by one of the schools. One of the issues was basically like third-hand contamination. Allegedly, one of the students, a couple of students coming from residence, supposedly rode on a school vehicle. The vehicle was tested for meth, and there was some positive tests that was as a result. But for information and research that we have done, and we're talking to medical experts, Drug Enforcement Administration, that third-hand exposure to meth simply is not that harmful. Believe that the liver will basically clean out any third-hand exposure. The real exposure to meth that is critical is direct exposure because you're using it, and second-hand exposure because if you're a child sitting there and you have a parent or guardian that's smoking a pipe with meth or exposure to meth, those are the real critical medical issues for children and other family members in the household. So, just wanted to point that out. We're working with the schools, that's brought to our attention, and we'll be working with Child Protection Services if we come across, any activity of drug use and exposure for children in homes and stuff, as far as getting Child Protection Services involved with the Department of Public Safety. We had a real good, close working relationship with the Housing Authority, their PSR program. There's been some changes to that program. Not quite sure where it sits right today, but that was an effective tool for us because we had the PSRs basically as kind of eyes and ears in terms of what they saw within our housing projects across the reservation. So, it's something that we're going to have to sit down with Housing Authority again to see if they're, really interested in pursuing that effort again. And it's just something, I know that they're trying to schedule a meeting between myself and Mrs. Firelander to discuss some of these issues. And I look forward to doing that, within the next week or so. That's where we're at today as far as the Department of Public Safety. Monday, myself, the Attorney General, a couple of our investigators will actually travel into the Rosebud Reservation. We're going to meet with the Rosebud Sioux Tribe and their police department, their drug investigators, and we started exchange of information between both of our departments and our communities to share information and how can we better work together to address the problem. But as I stated in the earlier meeting we had out in Kyle during some of the testimonies, that we're simply one component. We're simply the enforcement component of the law, and we can't jail or solve out of this problem. And it's going to take us working with the community, us working with the treatment facilities. There's absolutely no reason why our reservation doesn't have a huge treatment center to help address this issue. And I know the treatment program is working hard on getting a program up and running, but it's something that Congress has to address. One of the things, like I think Jean probably put it in, maybe she could address it, that in the 2022 budget, as far as our law enforcement program, I threw in $60 million to help build the new Justice Center in Kyle, looking at it as a possibility of a pilot program as not only correctional, but a treatment facility that would include medical staff, counseling, and other things that work alongside with our existing treatment program. So that's something in terms of long-term planning, maybe something that our legislature and our lobbyists could work on with our congressional people as part of this group or task force, putting this information out to them to say this is very important for us as a community, that we're losing lives basically, every month on this reservation because of some activity that goes on. So just again, wanted to give you some facts from our department and look forward to continuing to work with each one of you sitting here today. Thank you for coming.
Alrighty. you for that presentation. We sure appreciate it. It's very informative. Does anybody at this time have any questions regarding anything that he's mentioned in his presentation at this time? Okay, if not, we'll go on to the next. So the original plan was to have the METH awareness and education in the classroom and parent resources. And what this part of it was is we want to know what the schools are doing around METH awareness and education. What type of, what's their approach in the classroom, and or are they giving any parent resources and information out to our families so that they're becoming aware of this initiative as well? We have a question?
Well, I just wanted, I was trying to put this down real quick. I just wanted a real brief comment on the presentation just right before Chief of Police. No, he's a little bump. Okay, it's just that maybe if we can also draft something to help your department with the enhancing your drug task force with better equipment and night vision stuff, and just better stuff to help prosecute this, because I'm sure you're well equipped, but not to where you really need to be to make the prosecution more effective and the investigations more thorough. And not only that, I know you have the hotline, and the BIA has a hotline, but what I'd like to see more enhanced on that, if you will, is maybe billboards. Let's ask the tribe if they can put billboards up those hotlines everywhere. Right now, we can go into Sharp's Corner Store and we won't read the hotline. But maybe we can post them in all public places. I think if we can see these billboards and these hotlines everywhere, cut off the wrong way everywhere. It'll bring a stronger awareness. I know Facebook does quite a bit. Social media does quite a bit with the hotline. But I just like to see it more enhanced. It's there, but let's take it to the next level so we can, it's more out there. Thank you. That was my own comment.
Kind of the segue off of what Dakota brought up about what the schools are doing. Is there any traction on getting a school resource officer? Not in every school, but to bounce around between schools as a means of how DARE used to work, explain the dangers and the risks of drugs?
We're actually looking at that in the Department of Justice grant for 2020. Working with the grant writer to at least target our high schools here on our reservation and getting a school resource officer in every high school. And so we'll see how we come out in terms of funding of that. But that's one of the proposals that we're targeting to submit for this year's solicitation with the Department of Justice.
I know you don't work with housing anymore, Donna, but would they have any input or information on where to, like if they could possibly facilitate that as well?
I don't. I'm with OST Tribal Education now, and prior to my leaving, we did sit down with Bob, and there are grants available. And with the statistics that we had and that they had, I think they would probably have a pretty good chance, right, Lisa? If they keep the collaboration going, if they re-sign into an MOU and they keep the collaboration going, it may not be a grant that housing can put in for, but it may be a grant that public safety can put in for, and the numbers that we had on the work that we did would help him in getting that funding. So those are possibilities.
So you're with Tribal Ed? Okay. Was you here on behalf of Dana? Okay, you can go ahead and present.
Okay, so a few of the things she wanted me to kind of go over is, back in December, I started with tribal ed in October. In December, I got to go to one of her counselor meetings. She meets with the counselors every month, once a month. And back then, you know, we kind of started thinking about developing our own campaign rather than we're on it. So all the counselors and Dana kind of were brainstorming, you know, what other campaign slogan can we come up with against methamphetamine. We did start last week. We went on Keeley Radio. She does tea time every Tuesday, unless there's a tribal council meeting. And we just started talking about like the terminology, because when you get out in the communities and when you start talking to your community members, especially the elders, they don't understand some of this terminology, you know, and so the education part comes in, you know. We just want to make sure that everyone is on the same page, so that when they're giving Mr. Eckerby that information, or someone to give Mr. Eckerby that information, that what they're relaying, they will immediately know, you know, what we're talking about. Unless you have law enforcement background, some of that stuff, you know, they don't understand out there in the communities. You have to, even with the children, you know, and again, that's where the education, you know, comes into it. And if we could get like, I know I have some, but you know, if we could get all the ordinances, the resolutions, the codes that were brought up there, Dakota, emailed to us, you know, we can start there and getting that information out. And then yes, you know, talk to the schools and find out, you know, if they're giving anything out, what they're giving out. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I've been given everything that I have to Dana and stuff, so I did give her the ordinance. Coming from an education standpoint, a new position for me, but methamphetamines is not new to me. I was in the very first meeting. We saw methamphetamine get here back in 2016. And in 2017, we had a mass meeting up in Rapid City, and that's where that law came from, where that ordinance came from. And really, you know, we do have to just step up and do our part in educating and getting everybody the information. So whatever assignments or whatever we need to do from our part, we're willing to do.
All right, awesome. Thank you for that support, because we're definitely going to need it, and that's the very reason why we're here. And also for any planning and things like that we have, any ideas that we want to generate, will be for this afternoon session. And so we're going to go ahead and take a short break here. I have some speakers coming for the laptop here, and we're going to watch a video to finish up on the education component of this presentation, and then we'll go into Lisa after this video here. We're going to watch this video, and it's from a circle of healing for Native children endangered by drugs.
Kids tend to be healthy when they grew up in an environment where they feel loved, where they feel safe. And I think safety is a really big issue for kids, particularly in Indian country. Having a sense of predictability that really produces kids that come out feeling healthy. And that can happen in lots of different ways, and does in different cultural milieux. Possession or manufacturing, distribution, or use of illegal substances in the home or in the place of residence that the child is living in really gets in the way of a parent or a caretaker being able to provide when we need to provide for children. And a lot of kids growing up in those environments, they've mastered a way of being very secretive about what's going on in the home and very protective. Kids that have grown up in chaotic environments where there's been illegal drug use and other issues going on in the house, they really need to know that even if their parents are not able to get off of drugs or alcohol, that they potentially can heal from the effects of growing up and that kind of a situation.
I grew up a very angry child. My dad, he would really beat on my mom. I didn't know what it was like to live without screaming, without beer cans all over, without worrying about this, worrying about that. When my dad pulled my mom's hair, I heard some of her hair come out of her head, her scalp. You wake up in the morning and your whole house is all dirty from people spilling beer and your mom's not home. Just a lot of chaos. I wouldn't talk to anybody about my problems, and so after like stressing and keeping everything bottled up, I just finally broke down one day and attempted suicide.
Drug-endangered kids are really kids that are at risk of suffering physical and emotional and other types of harm.
I remember my mom being gone a lot, eating, feeding ourselves was completely up to my brothers and myself. We didn't have clothes. We were pretty much just living on our own, and so that was hard.
When my parents started drinking, I would have to step up for my sisters, and then take care of them while the party went on.
I've never forgotten what some of my family members have done to me. I've never forgot that. I carry it with me all the time. I carry that pain with me all the time.
Intergenerational trauma, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, family violence, it all goes hand in hand. This issue is important to me. It should be important to every officer in law enforcement that comes in contact with children.
I can imagine how many calls I've gone to where when you have a child, the child doesn't complain, he never says anything, he's just there. As long as the community is endangered with drugs, then every kid is going to be drug endangered in that community.
When the crime happens in the home, often children are involved, they're witnesses to these crimes.
On the calls that involve, taking you to the mother or father away, under an arrest situation to see the children's reactions. It's devastating to see what children have to go through.
If we're a part of a raid, a drug raid, we're basically pulling children out with nothing. We're traumatizing them by taking them out of their home, their comfort environment, to an area where they're not familiar. That trauma is secondary to what they've already experienced with the crime.
Someone needs to be a voice for these children to have no voice.
People that are growing up and they're mad and they don't even know why they're mad. But a lot of it has to do with that underlying trauma.
They start using, they start smoking at the age of 12 or 13. They're the ones that are going out looking for love, and girls at 14, 16 get pregnant. They're looking for that love. Every human being wants love, and tremendous amount of identity issues. Well, who am I? I was a 11-year user, and there was a point in my life that nothing else mattered, you know, to where my tradition was put in the back burner. My loved ones were put in the back burner because of my drug use. I was indicted along with 43 other individuals here on our Wind River Indian Reservation who were indicted for distribution of methamphetamine.
So if kids have grown up in drug-endangered environments and we wait until they present in the system with significant substance abuse issues themselves, it's a really late intervention.
In my work as a judge, every day I see young people that are struggling, that are so smart and have so much potential, and I see what they're going through, and I want something better for them.
We really need to be doing more systemic work across communities because this is a public health issue. This isn't just an inter-country issue. This is really a national public health issue in our country and in our communities.
It's a hard thing to talk about, and I think that's one of the problems with our people, is talking about things that really affect us, you know, sharing that, you know. That's one of the biggest problems I see working in a clinical environment. They didn't want to talk about it. They know it's there, therapists know that they're there, but it's hard to bring it out.
It's really important, especially when we talk about trauma and some of the things that lead to drug and alcohol abuse and some of the issues that we're trying to address. We really have to look at that trauma and the experience of Native American populations, of the tribal people. And there's a lot of differences between tribes, but a lot of the experiences and some of the basic things that people have gone through are pretty similar.
Historical trauma in general is really that idea of unresolved trauma and grief, and that really causes or contributes to chronic problems.
We're looking at 3 to 5 generations of a distortion, of a distorted view of who we are as Indian people. Not one individual can change this community. It's going to take tribal government, it's going to take every service provider, it's going to take the educational system, the social system.
Everybody in these small communities throughout our region are friends and family, and so everybody's impacted when someone is harmed.
I am not going to be an alcoholic. If I ever have children, I don't want them to live that way. I mean, I struggled, so I don't want my kids to struggle.
All right, courts can have a huge impact if especially tribal courts try to embrace the family setting of a community to allow the focus for a family and an extended family. But they really can make a fundamental difference, not only in behavior today, but for kids and grandkids.
Change is possible, you know, and it's necessary. I've been volunteering for the Fatherhood of Sacred. First I was court-ordered in my past, you know, because of my drug use and being incarcerated and stuff like that. And after I graduated from there, you know, I just kept coming back. I needed something to hold on to, and that was something that worked for me at the time.
The thing that I, you know, found out working with the youth is you have to listen. The answer you're looking for is right there within the youth.
My mom's an alcoholic, and most of my family is. I've been in foster care since I was 2. I've been in 26 placements. I still love my mother to death and the rest of my family, and it's like really hard for me right now.
So you give them time to let them build their thoughts and their courage. By the time they got everything, they're like, okay, well, it's time for me to say what I have to say. The answer you're looking for is right there.
Our goal is try to figure out how to make families whole, how to take care of children.
I've seen a huge change in the last few years where we're finally collaborating. We're finally discussing safety and what is best for drug-endangered children.
To make sure everything's safe, but then hey, let's also glance down and make sure that, you know, we're not missing a 2-year-old toddler holding on, or we're not missing a kid in stroller. You know, they're kind of the things that just got let go, and as officers we missed. And so it's time for us to refocus so that we're catching more of these kids.
And if there's one child in trouble from a parent or caregiver's drug use, that's one child too many. It's not too late to change this, to reverse the cycle.
Alright, I thought I'd share that video just to kind of get us warmed up for the development of this afternoon. So with that, at this time I'd like to welcome Lisa Schrader, who's with Housing. She's the Community Wellness Specialist, to present for the program.
Is it okay for you to sit here?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Wow, thank you for sharing that video. You know, when my uncle was talking about how many arrests they made so far, and last year I thought, wow, that's great. But then the other part of me thought, gosh, I wonder where all those kids are. Where are all those children, you know? And so I just like, you know, and I know you all don't need reminders, but let's always keep them in mind as we put a plan together and as we work on this devastation that's going on in our communities. What I wanted to do is share to you when I heard that our tribal council had put a state of emergency out, then I contacted my funding agency, and I work with housing. Mr. Paul Ironclad hired me about 6 years ago, but with the intent that I find my own funding. so I reached out and we got a grant from SAMHSA, Substance Abuse Mental Health Service Administration, and we got a grant called Native Connections. So with this grant, our main population is ages 10 to 24, and what we said we would do is find youth out in the communities that are at risk for substance abuse and at risk for suicide. And what we want to find the ones that are not in school. And so how we're doing that is we're doing trainings of people that work with youth. We thought housing would be the perfect fit to work with our TSRs that should know the families and know that if there's kids that aren't in school. And so we've been in operation for a year. We've done a lot of like orientation and setting up MOUs with different programs, and there's a lot of programs that we still have yet to set up with, but that's our goal. And so when I reached out to the technical assistance to SAMHSA, they immediately responded and said that they would send some people down to help us do what you call a tribal action plan. And they asked me to get a working group together, or I thought this would be perfect for your task force that you create, and get that started, get a conference call, and they'll send someone down to help us put this action plan together. And I know people will say, we need something done right now. We can't be writing a plan, we need something done right now, but it will be done right away. And it's really important that we have a plan to follow and know roles and responsibilities of who's gonna do what. Like for example, if we do it, someone talked about awareness, and if we do a social media campaign, who's gonna be responsible for helping get billboards? Who's gonna do commercials? Who's gonna do walks in the communities? And so this plan is really, in my opinion, very important. So I'm hoping you guys will support this and we can be involved that way. Just some of the other work that I've been involved with, I partnered with OST Health Administration, and the National Indian Health Board had opportunity for grants, and one of them was strengthening communities. So we put in for one, and I know Dakota, you remember at one time we did a call for spiritual leaders and their guidance. And so we put in for one and got funded. So within the next 3 months, we need to get that rolling. We need to, and we'd like to have a meeting at Fairview with our spiritual leaders to ask for their guidance. So, and this could happen real soon, really soon. So those are just some things that I can offer in my expertise on behalf of the Oglala Housing. I also pulled down, there's a couple of grants through SAMHSA, and I'll pass them around, but it's like creating a strategic prevention framework. There's one called Circles circles of children, and planning and developing infrastructure to promote mental health for children. So there's resources out there, and I'm willing to help. Put a work group together, willing to help write, whatever we can do to get the work done for our communities. I just wanted to comment, I've been to presentations by former meth users that have sobered up, and one of my favorites is Harvard Cook. And you know, personally, I've been through a lot of this, and so I would listen to her presentation over and over, and I know that I've been to meetings where they said, you know, they just need to go to jail. They need to go to jail, and they need to do a lot of time. But I've listened to her several times, and not in anywhere in her presentation, she said they never gave up on her. They never gave up on her, and they never said, you know, you go to jail. They never ever gave up on her. And for me, I keep thinking that's what we need to do, is we can't give up on the youth. We can't give up on what they're fleeced against. And so I truly believe that we have a lot of hard work to do, but we can do it. And I appreciate, you know, like my uncle said, they're going to Rosebud, because that's how we win our biggest battles, right? Is we work in partnership with each other and with other tribes. I'll pass these around. Thank you.
At this time, does anyone have any questions for Lisa?
Lisa, I just want to make a comment to you. Back in the day, remember, I used to be a probation officer. And basically, how we combat truancy, people not going to school, is we have the schools fax the probation department their absentee list. And you know, since I've been an advocate for about 3 years and not an advocate anymore, not once did I have to go to court representing a child because they was missing school. So then I think that it would be a good idea that the schools start doing that again, so that way the children can be tracked and who's not going to school and who's dropping out, and that would be a useful tool for you.
Thank you.
Johnny. So you didn't give a specific date. Sorry, I'm Tyler Pierce with the Chief of Staff's office. Oh, you just said sometimes within the next 3 months when you want to have that meeting at Fairview with all the spiritual leaders?
Yeah, it could be anytime. I mean, you know, there's protocols, so I need someone to do that for us. Get that done right away, and then we can do the call with the TTA within the next couple days.
And will you coordinate with Dakota on that one?
So just to kind of fill in, during the last time we had the start of the suicide epidemic that was happening back in 2012, we got together, and I was, Lisa and I were health admin then, and we kind of generated some ideas and establishing a protocol and reaching out for help for different from different places. And we said, hey, it would be a good idea to go back to our traditional customs, and how did that look for our people, and what was the approach to that? Because whatever our ancestors did, they were so healthy, and they had good health and wellness. They had all this awesome way of life, and they were very healthy in all capacities. Whatever wellness there was, their mental, spiritual, physical, emotional. And so we decided we'd do a gathering of our spiritual advisors and our spiritual leaders to say we can use them as a resource and identify them, and then what better way to come together to as a nation to pray for our people. So we kind of just asked around in the communities and across the reservation, who are your spiritual leaderships, and we want to do a call for them. We're going to have this gathering, and we want to kind of talk about which direction to go. And so we got advice from our elders and our spiritual leaders, because many times in our capacities, we think differently today. But we, at that time, utilized our culture and tried a different approach to it. And we asked our elderly this time, how can you be of help to suicides that are happening. How do we approach this culturally? What's appropriate? What's the protocol? What is our ancestors' approach to this? And so we sat down, we offered them tobacco, we zila, and then we put our thinking caps on, and they each got an opportunity to speak. I think there was over 15 spiritual leaders that came that time. And then it so happened to be that we called it during the time of the Oglala Nation, fair, rodeo, all that was going on then. And they said, you know, we have to do a wiping of the tears for our people that are going through hard times, that are mourning because of what the trauma that they're experiencing. So they all agreed, and they wanted to go right down to the Yo Park there here in Pine Ridge, and we kind of called for all the youth, and their families were there, and everyone made a big circle. And you know, and then there's other people there that were passing by that were curious, you know, what's going on. They kind of made an announcement, and it was a good turnout. There was more than 15 spiritual leaders that went and did a wiping of the tears ceremony for hundreds of people in that circle. And they fanned them off with their eagle feather, and they azilaed them off. And that was the start of our Celebration of Life campaign. And what that was that in order to bring awareness and prevent the suicides from happening, which turned into an epidemic, as you all know, we went into every community, every single day. So consistency is key when developing a task force, especially around a crisis such as this. And as a result of that, something good will happen, and that goodness is being able to be more prepared and equipped and ready, you know, and prevent any future damages to our nation. And so that was the result of that. It was, and so we can say that it's safe to apply those same methods to this type of epidemic, and utilizing that approach of teamwork, and being able to identify what resources we have and what resources that we need, and then which direction to go from here, and really establish a concrete plan to help combat. So we want to know what's out there. We want to know who's doing what, and what each and every department can bring to the table, and we want to be consistent about this. And we want to be able to report back to our Oyate and our people to let them know that our leadership and our tribal entities and other organizations are coming together to help combat this epidemic of meth. Because we all know that this is a problem, a big problem in our communities, and our people are afraid to stand up, and we want to be able to be that voice for them in the capacity that we are to help combat them, and then to make an assurance, to give them an assurance that we are doing something about it, that we're going to make safe communities, you know, that we're going to be able to bring awareness and education to families about what is meth, you know, all of this information that we learned from this morning, and then how to prevent the use of it too, in hopes that our people and our young people, especially our youth, to help them to make better and healthier choices, you know, and really to identify, to do that community work of what is a healthy community, what does that look like for you, and how can we be of service to help make that happen. And thus we have to have a good, quality, adequate life for each family member within each household. So that, you know, that's the big vision here, is to get creative, to help combat this meth, whether it be, you know, looking at what does the law say, and what's working and what isn't. What is the education component of it, you know? How are we going to be able to do this health promotion in our communities to make our people become aware. And then if there's policies, within our work organizations, how does that look? What the policies do we need to develop? What's there and what's not working, and then just revisiting those things, and then being consistent about the overall projection of where do we want to be in the future. 5 years, 10 years from now, we want to be able to say, okay, we only had 2 convictions of meth this year from today. And we went over the data from earlier from the Department of Public Safety and Corrections and courts and how that looked. And it's significant. It's progressing. It's not decreasing. So that's a problem. And so we're here today to be able to figure out how we can help one another to do that. And so thank you, Lisa, for your work and offering your support and services to us. I know that you're doing some tremendous work in our community. It's one thing that she didn't mention that I think is very creative and thinking outside the box. We had a community meeting last night in Wounded Knee, and it was a special session that I ran as the president there. And Lisa and the CEO of housing had come, and they showed up, and they're doing more to help our families in the homes rather than just fixing the homes. So I think a quote from Cecilia, she said, we're not just there to fix the 4 walls around you, we're there to help the families as well, unquote. And so I thought that was awesome because, that's really looking at the foundation of where this problem is coming from. And too many times we think about, or we say, this problem starts in the home and it's supposed to be fixed in the home. But when we're lacking family foundations, how do we approach that more better? We have to educate and thus that self-awareness, self-education, self-love, self-care. We have to provide those type of services in the homes to individuals so that, again, they will make better choices and they will be able to role model those good behaviors, and then being able to show that amongst their peers, and then there becomes family development, being a good neighbor, and just a ripple effect of what that outcome could be from one healthy person, and then being able to spread that Bible amongst our family, our relatives, and for future generations. Because we always say that in order to make a change, they say it takes 4 generations. And if we're only at the awareness stages of that, we want to make sure that our grandchildren or our children will not have to go through any of this crisis or epidemic, that we will have a concrete plan that's more prepared, we'll have protocols in place so that anything like this ever happens, that we're already on top of it. And so with that being said, I'm going to show one more video, then we're going to go into lunch, and then after lunch we're going to start out with Shawnee. She had forwarded me some information, but we're going to go over some of those, and then that's the way that we'll start the afternoon. So after this video here, you guys are more than welcome to take a break, and then our lunch will start after that. And this is a 9-minute video, so go ahead, Fabian.
Yeah, before you show the video, I just want to make a couple comments. So a couple years ago, under when it was President Weston's administration, he had created a substance abuse task force, interagency task force. And we've been meeting, supposed to be monthly. So I just wanted to just go over some of the issues that I think that myself and maybe some of the other programs face. I think we all really want the same thing. There's nobody in this room that doesn't want the same thing. But observing that task force, which Quentin Luke has been a part of, I think the problem is maybe we don't understand how to actually make steps and next steps. So one of the issues that we discovered early on was that there was gaps in services. Now, those of us in this room right now are the ones that actually have the ability to change policy, our own program's policy, to work together better. But most people probably really don't understand what Untitled does or what the rest of us really do, even though every meeting we say the same thing. So I think, one of the things that as we move forward, we really have to commit to understanding what the scope of each other's programs are. And then we also have to understand where the gaps are. And we've heard Betty say time and time again that one of the gaps are the probation officers, which would be a vital component that works between the courts and the other agencies that can help, like Untitled, CPS, victim services. So what I'm saying is, if we move together on this, I don't think it should be molecule specific, meaning just on meth, but there are things that we have to do as a large organization so that we can start making sure that our pieces are fitting together better. You know what I'm saying? And in order for that to happen, we need leadership. At the chief of staff, because of the programs we try to do the leadership, people don't show up, or it turns into a structure that doesn't promote change. But what we really need to talk about is when we have these monthly meetings, which this should be is monthly meeting, we shouldn't have presentations. We should talk about what does Chief Akafi need to happen for him, how can we coalesce around his effort? What are his issues? What are the court's issues, the Attorney General's office? How do we actually increase the structure or the system? How do we improve the system? And each month there are going to be issues. There are going to be issues with the system that we could address. I just think that would be really the best use of our time. I would be willing to bet other people sitting in the room feel the same way as I do. But it has to be monthly, and it has to be issue specific. What's the issue? What does the courts have? What does Epidemic have? And then talk about addressing each issue as it comes up, as opposed to I'm giving my monthly report. All of us are giving our monthly reports, and nothing. By the time we're done, it's lunchtime, and nothing gets resolved. I just want to say that, and I know that all of our hearts are in the right place. There's no doubt about that.
Thank you for sharing that. That's vital information and very useful whenever we develop it into this afternoon. Again, you were mentioning consistency is key, and I think that one of the areas that I definitely am seeing for the past few months is that better line of streamlining good communication. Exactly what you're saying. What is your program doing? What is your program doing? What are your objectives? Things like that. So, this presentation, again, you weren't here at the beginning of it. It was meant to give a focus and redirect their attention to the meth epidemic. We also have a community member here, so this information is in that way to be able to share so that our people know. And then this afternoon was developing that task force with that. So again, I'm going to show this video, and then we'll most likely do a working lunch. As soon as our lunch comes, we'll just get right into it. So that way we're having a better use of our time.
Fabian, that task force that you mentioned, does that have anything to do with Untitled, prevention coalition?
Well, there's two task forces, and my discussion about presentations weren't really about today. It was really about all the meetings we always have.
Yeah.
And it's us presenting, to each other, but there's really two. There's one that's prevention focused, and there's one that's interagency. So I bet that the Attorney General has questions about how we could improve the communication between treatment, maybe CPS, housing, and those questions never get put to the table. So we become, and Dr. Luther has been faithfully coming to those, and I think the Attorney General has been faithfully coming to those.
I want to back up everything Faye was saying about, I mean, we've been meeting at that substance abuse task force. I've attended every one of them I could go to too, for several, I mean, for over a year, almost 2 years. And I mean, I've spoken at those meetings, it's the same problem, is that every meeting we go to, it's just, hey, everybody, this is what my program does, this is what we do. Everybody become familiar with my program, here's my presentation. And you know, the purpose of the group was to identify a set of concrete, achievable goals. We could either present to council for action, or we could seek the resources we needed to fill those gaps he's talking about. And instead, the group didn't really address those things, and it hasn't to this date. And you know, I think the chair of that, which is Ramon Barrow, said he wants to have a plan or draft. I think he said by, was it May or March or something? But we haven't even put one word on a piece of paper about what those are. You know, I don't think we're going to make it this rate, but identifying what we want, the goals we want, and things we want. So I'm with Fabian in wanting less meetings about here's what my program does. Because I mean, I've been here 2 years. I kind of have a good idea. I don't know everything the program does, but I know a lot about what the program does, but enough to know how we work together and what we can, to be able to suggest some things or to see if there are ways to work better or streamline things or seek those resources jointly that we're missing. And I've been talking about probation officers since I got here. You know, again, that's something that I've said when I visited with some prosecutors from Rosebud. I mean, I told them we didn't have probation officers. Their jaw that hit the floor. You know, how do you guys do anything? It's probationers. How did they? So anyway, I wanted to echo what he's saying that I do think we could have been more productive in those meetings. And I'm always happy to attend meetings, but I'm attending a lot of meetings where it's kind of echoes, you know. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Yanta.
I'd like to back these guys up too, because I've been at it for at least maybe 6 years. I go down law and order committee, and you know, their orders came out during Brian's administration. Yeah. And so anyway, and it's very faulty, and it's not helping the addicted. And that's what we have around here is addiction mainly, besides the sellers. But even that's faulty. And but you know, it just falls on deaf ears. They don't. It seems like they don't want to change the law, improve it, for protection of our people and the addicted. And you know, like let's say some of these cases could possibly go federal. And we didn't have a stable chief of police. And so a lot of those things that could have went federal, a lot of the crimes that fell through the cracks. And I'm guilty of helping one white guy out of here, and because we don't have jurisdiction over him. And I was hoping that the feds would have picked him up, but he got out, and there was no feds there to pick him up. And there again, you know, it was the lack of the chief police knowledge on what procedures to take.
Since the AG and Fabian both brought up, mentioned probation officers, that is a weakness for us, and every year we put in our unmet needs. However, this year, in working with our accountant, we're going to be hiring 2 probation officers. They're going to be temporary based on our funding, but my question to you and Dakota, the CTAS 2020 is out. Who's going to coordinate that for the tribe? Because I want to put in for 3 different purpose areas.
Who's going to coordinate it for us? I don't have that answer for you right now at this moment, but of course get that to you.
Yeah, and there's funding available in those areas. So.
Yes, there is.
And I agree with both of them. We meet in this room, and we go out frustrated because you know we all have a lot to do. But Ramon's dedicated because it's a ordinance that he has to abide to, and it's just like I don't know how many times we met, how Fabian, and I always ask, everybody should know, each program should put their roles and responsibilities like a flow chart, okay? Here's the police, here's prosecution, then it comes over to the court, you know, because our people don't really understand that. That's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Thank you guys all for that, and I understand where you're coming from and being able to want to get down to down to business. So we'll just finish this video up, and then that just lets us know that we're ready to rock and roll this afternoon, and I think that as a result of what the afternoon gives us, what we come up with, I think we want to move forward as quickly as possible as well, and we just want to make sure that we're doing this in a well-coordinated way. So again, all of this is being recorded, and it's for purposes of our leadership too, to continue to be aware of each step throughout this process that we're doing, and making sure that we have all of our ducks in a row, and we're making everyone aware of everything that we have and everything that we covered from this morning, from what our ordinance is, what our code is, and then what some of the programs have done, and then exactly what is METH. So we'll get started on this video.
The reason that our uphold is to respect one another, work together, and all that. Our children are going this other way, and they're losing who they are. Arapaho people, the way we were supposed to live.
The young people now weren't taught cultural traditions, or their parents weren't taught those things. The biggest impact that I see with the drugs and alcohol in the community is that generation gap.
We're all faced with a lot of different problems, and a lot of it's all geared around drugs and alcohol. It's really affecting families. It's affecting the way our children are growing up.
There's bigger fight, a lot of violence. We need to find a way how to get our people turned around back to who we were, who we are.
I was a 11-year user, and there was a point in my life that nothing else mattered,
You guys, lunch is here, so we'll just break for lunch. Give yourself something to eat. I'll let the video try to play still, and then we'll get started. Hey, Rick.